Today on the show, we talk about optimizing yourself as a human and how that's really step one to optimizing any business. Today, before we kick off this episode, I want to thank our sponsor, For You From Me by Raj Daniels. This book is phenomenal. If you know Raj Daniels, and you can check out episodes 1 and 2 of this show in order to get to know him a little bit better. If you know him, then you know what an inspiration he is, just in the guidance that he gives in his own life, person by person on a one-by-one basis. And his book is no different. It's really a clear vision of how you should be approaching life, presented in a way that is, it's simple to take action on. And that's so important these days. It's really meant to be taken, a chapter at a time, and then take that sort of lesson of the day and let it sink in, let it soak in, and kind of color your whole day. So make sure you check out For You From Me by Raj Daniels. It's on Amazon. Get you a copy right now. How's it going, everybody? Jason Croft here, the Credibility Craftsman. And today on the show, I've got Rocky Garza. I wanted to have Rocky on the show because he has this amazing ability to get at the core of what drives us as people. And we really dig in today a lot of what his superpower is about, is taking these two extremes in life where a lot of us think that we've got to live in one or the other, right? And showing how the truth is really in the middle. And I think that's that's the reality for most things in life, rather than these polarizing elements. Rocky has this amazing ability to, lead a team in an 8-hour session, to really find out what is truly driving them and how they best operate in this world, whether it's their company, but in life in general. But then also have that insight to the entire rest of the team that's with them, so they can better communicate to each other. And that's an amazingly simplistic way that I've just described it, compared to how he breaks it down here, and certainly what he does in person for folks. And we get into a lot of his story. What led him on this path was just amazing and fascinating. So let's jump in with Rocky Garza. Rocky Garza.
My man.
Welcome to the show.
Thanks, dude.
I'm excited that you're here.
Thanks, me too. Thanks for having me on.
Yes. We have a beautiful sunny day here, which I'm very, very happy about.
Yeah, considering the last few days, today is nice.
Absolutely. So Rocky and I, we connected, a while back. Reconnected Dallas Startup Week this past week.
Yes, sir.
And which was fantastic. And I'm so interested in your core offering right now, which is both, there's a speaking component, but there's a way deeper component
for sure
than that. So I would love to touch, if you would, describe what that main kind of thing is, and then we'll definitely dive in. And
cool.
Good story.
We go backwards from there.
Yeah.
So it's hard. I never start at the beginning. I always start at the end. I always try to go back there and come here. So we'll flip it around.
That's right. So, I just want to keep you on your toes.
Yeah, thanks. So I have a company now. Now it's just under my name. So it's just Rocky Garza. Okay. RockyGarza.com is where everything lives. So that only changed though probably 4 or 5 months ago. Before that, everything lived under the name Staff Retreat Co. So I kind of had spent the majority of my time looking at how do I invest in small businesses, entrepreneurs, sole proprietor entrepreneurs specifically. How do we build a brand around that? Now, I'm not in branding, so I'm not doing design. I'm not doing your website. I'm more talking about from an identity standpoint.
Gotcha.
Kind of through that process the last 3.5 years of what I call identity mapping. So that's the process that I use or we created. By we, I mean me.
I did the same thing.
But I can say we because that sounds real good.
Exactly.
We created.
And I definitely want to dig. I'm really interested in that. I want to dig into that more.
So identity mapping is kind of like the core of everything that I do comes from that place, whether that's one-on-one with someone, whether that's with a team or organization of either 15 or less. That's kind of our threshold for one experience, or 15 or 16 and above is same material, but more of a facilitation, different kind of experience.
Gotcha.
And then keynote and speaking. So those are kind of the three main ways that I I interact with folks, if we want to say that's how I'm client facing, the way someone's writing me a check, is either you and me one-on-one, me with your team of any number, or going to a conference and speaking, doing a workshop, whatever. So,
gotcha.
But all from the human aspect, the identity aspect, my number one target is anyone in the corporate world, and corporate meaning a working business, obviously. But I love that because the first thing we do in every session is I want you to take your journal, I want you to write your name down, and I want you to write your title and your position down, and I want you to scratch out your position because for the next 8 hours, nobody cares what your job is.
Awesome.
And so, because I think from that, I think we just live in a society, we live in a culture where everything, you and I meet, hey, I'm Rocky. Hey, I'm Jason. Nice to meet you.
Yeah.
Nice to meet you.
Hey,
the very next question is,
what do you do?
And then like, no matter who you are, you and me included, based on whatever that person says to us, we immediately make a snap judgment on whether or not that person is or is not valuable to us. If they're valuable, well, tell me about that. And by valuable meaning, is it going to advance me personally, or for me as an entrepreneur, are you going to pay me?
Right.
Then yeah, tell me about that. That's awesome. I'd love to hear about that. And if it's not valuable to me, then I go, cool, that's awesome.
And then it's immediate disconnect. You don't know what they said.
It doesn't matter. Then I go, cool, yeah. Hey, I'm gonna grab a cup of coffee. It was great to meet you. And I move on to the next one, right? So like, but what happens is then of course we wonder why every part of our identity is based on our profession. Our ability to perform is the number one thing. What we can say, companies are of 3 people or less, and the guy who started it in his LinkedIn profile it says CEO. Okay? I don't know that you're actually making chief executive officer decisions. There's 3 of you. Jimmy John's was lunch. That's literally that's the decision you made. So anyway, that's a different topic. But
and not to interrupt, but I'm going to interrupt.
Yeah, interrupt.
And whose fault, though, it's just, when I think about this, whose fault is it, though? Whose fault is it in terms of, if at one level, it's nobody's fault. That's how we are as humans, right? Sure. In that interaction time. But is it the person who you should dig in a little more to find out more about that person than this is your job title? But is it the other person's job as well to identify themselves in a way it doesn't matter what they do, it's gonna trigger that somebody to go, oh wow, tell me more.
Yes. My answer is yes.
Yes.
Both. So it's like who's at fault, who's to blame, but also whose responsibility is it? I mean, the broad stroke answer is yes, all of ours, right? Like, unless I do the personal work first to know that my number one value, the number one thing that makes me important is not my profession. If I don't know that, I'm not going to lead with anything else.
Right.
And if you don't do the work to have enough vulnerability and empathy to care about me as a human being, regardless of what I tell you my job is, for you to make a snap judgment on me, that's also your responsibility. It's like it has to be together, because otherwise you find yourself in where there are moments where obviously a part of it's my job, so I'm a little more mindful than I would tell you the average person is. I try to lead with things that are not my profession, or say something where you're like, what? What does that mean? Purposely, because I'm trying to further that conversation. But that's also the response I get is like, how do people pay? Do people pay you? Even my grandma, my best friends, every time I see her, she's like, how are things going? Good. How's work? Good. How's cool? Now what do you do again? And I've told her countless times, but I think there's something about that where she's trying to understand, because she loves me and knows I'm valuable regardless of it. She knows someone's paying me for it. She's still trying to figure out though, what is the value in what you're doing for somebody else? Because I think even to her, somebody who's super close to me still has a hard time not cresting that. So I think it's us. I think it's all of us. I think we have to take responsibility. But that means at night when you lay down, or in the morning when you brush your teeth and you look in the mirror, you have to have done enough self-work to know there's something exists on the other side besides whatever your profession is.
Absolutely. And I love all this stuff and so much, because obviously that's why I do this, right? Right. I love digging in and that human component to things. And and I struggle with that too, because I go to a lot of these, whether it's a networking kind of thing, or, if I'm hosting one, or if I'm just popping into one, I'm going there mostly these days, let's just meet some new people. So that's a little bit easier. But I struggle with the fact that I know that it's my job to make sure that either that person across from me knows that they need to hire me,
right?
Or if they know someone who needs me,
right?
To your point with your grandmother, you have to do a good enough job to that person, if it's not your grandma, to the person in that network.
Totally. But I think though, I use Dallas Startup Week as an example. Okay. So I went to, there was some great sessions, went like just for my own development, sit, listen, take notes, like tons of folks that are way smarter than me, good things to learn.
Absolutely.
The other side of that is like, I made the conscious decision on 3 days of that week. I was going to go for 2 or 3 hours, and I was just going to sit and be available for that any opportunity that arose for me to have a conversation with another human and try to provide as much value as I could. But whether you know me, you think it's a lot, or you don't know me, you think it's limited. Either way, to be available and no sell, no, here's what I do, no, here's my card, no, here's how you should hire me, no, just doing my best to see anyone who is willing, as valuable enough of worthy of my time to sit and have a conversation with, because there has to be some sort of like flatline bar that we're able to see everybody on the same plane in order to do that.
Yeah.
Right. I ended up making more contacts, made more meetings with more potential clients than if I would have set out and said, I'm going to go meet as many people as I can, shake as many hands, try to find a lead. Right. Because then I'm that guy.
Right.
Right. But instead you have a conversation with 45 minutes with a guy you've never met before, who then says, oh my gosh, do you know so-and-so and so-and-so? And I say, no. And he said, I'm going to connect you. You need to meet them. Beautiful. And then you know what I'm saying? Like, you ask during the session, asked a question because I legitimately had a question. And the guy who was leading the session goes, yeah, that makes sense. I think I follow you on Instagram. Right? And I'm like, great. It's working.
Perfect. Yeah.
And I asked my question. He gave me great feedback. I took some notes, like already made changes. It's awesome. Followed up and he shot me an email the next day and said, hey, you're free next week. I'd love to get together and chat.
That's beautiful.
So I think there's a part of that too is, there's an immense amount of personal health required. There's an immense amount of ability to, and when I use the word eloquent, take that with a grain of salt, but eloquently communicate what you do in a concise way that matters, your elevator pitch or whatever. But you got to be able to sit back and go, like, I can actually only control so much.
Yeah.
Like, do I really think I'm going to just go up and just conjure up a ton of business, old school, like
by saying the right five words,
like women's shoe salesman style? Like, yeah, you know what? That guy was good at it because he was in a department store for women only, where women were coming in at 10 a.m. to only buy shoes, and he worked in the shoe department. Right. Of course, he's good at selling women's shoes. How many people out there who are either in the corporate world or an entrepreneur, every day you go isolated to a spot where people come to you wanting to buy you? Like, that isn't right for most of us, unless you sell women's shoes. That's not how it works. Right. You know? So I think there's a part of that, like, you got to understand yourself and you have to be able to communicate that. But more importantly, you got to want to provide value to people based on what you feel, who you are, what you're doing, because you think that they're worth it, even if they never pay you another dollar.
Yeah, that's beautiful. And I think it's not only, oh, yeah, that feels nice. It's also good business.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
It's the thing people talk about.
It's just, it's the longer term perspective.
100%.
And that doesn't mean 12 years. That just means maybe not today, but a few weeks from now,
right?
Long term.
Right. Yeah. I mean, none of the people that I talk to or made a connection with or that have a meeting set up with, or none of them are going to hire me and pay an invoice in the next 30 days. Yeah. Unless the stars align, right. They have an event and they don't have one booked yet and they want someone. Yeah. Okay. But outside of that, like, we're talking, this is May, June, July. You know what I mean? Right. Like, we're easily 90 days out before anything happens with these people. But
the only way you're going to get there
is to be a nice person.
Right.
You know?
And I think what's awesome, and I think more people can do this, but with what you do especially, it's great because you really can show up to one of these events, dig in with somebody for a few minutes and offer solutions for them, or guidance, or 100%. Hey, have you thought about this 100%. Kind of stuff that can blow somebody's mind?
Yes. And I think that's, to me, like, that's the element of going, like, I've spent a long time, and I'm almost 35, so I guess take long, whatever that means. But for me, it feels like a long time. Mm-hmm. I spent a long time working on, digging into, trying to figure out to become as healthy as I possibly can emotionally. We're working on the physical part, but mentally, spiritually, like, I think it takes a lot of effort, and it takes a lot of continual effort. Mm-hmm. But there's a documentary on Netflix right now called Ugly Delicious. So David Chang, he's the guy who created Momofuku and that whole restaurant thing. Mm-hmm. So it has nothing to do. There's a quote in like episode 4 or 5, and it has nothing to do with what I do at all. But this quote has, like, I can't get it out of my brain. So he makes a statement, like, kind of offhanded, and says, every day when I show up, when I go to work as a chef, every day when I walk in the kitchen, whether it's my kitchen, at a restaurant, somewhere else, he goes, I want to, whatever I make or create or do that day, I want it to be the sum total, the full culmination of my entire life experience in one moment.
Wow.
And for me, like, I think that's something that I don't know that I've never had those words until somebody else spoke them.
Yeah.
But I think that's why what you just said works, is because my goal really is my ability to make a connection with you. It's not a superpower. It's that I've spent a long time tracking almost every event I can remember in my life, so that when I come to the table, metaphorically, I want it to be the sum total of my life experience available, right? That's why before you and I started, I said there's nothing you can't ask me.
Right.
Because that any one of those small things that I might feel a little ashamed about or a little bit guilty about, or I don't know how it's going to come across, or they're going to think I'm too weird, or somebody else somewhere is going, me too.
Absolutely.
And like that single thing is the moment where people go, I have felt like that. I currently feel like that. I know what that feels like. Therefore, let's work together.
Yeah.
I don't have an MBA, never worked in the corporate world. I have no letters on either side of my name. Well, I have JR, but that means junior. That's not valid. There is zero reason on paper that you should listen, and I have any credibility to tell you anything about you or your team. I mean, I literally have zero. Except that every time my goal is to go, look, what I'm telling you, this is not a book that I read, I'm regurgitating. Right. This is because last night I had a conversation with my wife about this, and I talked to my son like this, and I had an experience like this, and I'm trying to reconcile with my grandfather like this, and all of those things collectively, like I want to have all of those available at the table anytime I have an interaction with a person. Oh, yeah. Because to me, like that gives way for the ability to say, okay, then if I can provide a chance for you to then say me too, now we can get somewhere.
Yeah, that's beautiful. And it's also, now you've done this enough too, that it's also, here's the team I helped last month. Here's this professional person. Here's this, that
100%.
All that comes into as well. And so I want to do some of the going backwards a little bit here.
Yeah.
So, where does this come from?
Yeah.
Like both the interest and then you hit that path. Where does, because this isn't just like it's hard to explain to your grandmother. This isn't, I'll do this.
Right.
You don't point to this.
No, you don't. So I'll try to give the medium version. Okay.
All right. Take as long as you need.
Okay. So I was born in Kansas.
Yep.
Lived there for about a week. So don't really think. I don't know. Didn't live there very long. Came back to Dallas. My parents got divorced right around when I was 2.
Yep.
So never lived with my dad growing up. Holidays here, holidays there. We never had a bad relationship. It was never volatile. It was never, him and my mom always got along. Like, I'm super thankful for that. But we were more like friends than we were like father and son.
Interesting.
My mom has been married and divorced 4 times. And so I think we moved a bunch growing up. Not for really anything like cool or fun, but other than like my mom's job, like she worked super hard. She started as like a teller at a collection agency and ended up vice president of the company at one point. So she worked really hard. I got, the undercurrent is like my mom did everything she ever possibly could to make sure that I was okay. Even I know that it meant at times sacrificing what she actually wanted in order to give me something better. So know that as an undercurrent to all these things. It's not a blast to my mom. Sure, she did the very best she could, and I'm extremely grateful for that. But we moved a ton. Like, we lived a couple places in Dallas, and we moved up north of McKinney before I started kindergarten. Then we moved to Louisville, and I started kindergarten there. Moved back to my grandparents' house in Farmers Branch to finish kindergarten. San Antonio for first and second. The other side of San Antonio for half a third. Back to Farmers Branch for the rest of third. Carrollton for 4th. Farmers Branch for 5th. Frisco for 6th. And then I moved back to my grandparents' house in 7th grade. And then I lived with my grandparents 7th through 11th grade. My mom lived about 4 streets away the whole time. So I think for all that, like I'm of a pretty firm belief whatever happens to us between the ages of 6 and 12 is a pretty good indicator. Whatever we have to do to survive in that range. And I don't mean life or death, and that's a part of your story, but whatever we have to do to survive is a pretty good indicator of how we operate as an adult. Yep. Right? That's why we say like, oh, you're a middle child. Oh, you're a firstborn. Oh, you're the third child. Right? Like, that's why we have these generalizations that people can fit in, because typically like that family environment of a middle child of 3 is the same for every middle child.
Right.
Well, that's why they're all very similar. But so I think for us, take the element of trying to figure out what child you are. I think whatever happens there is a pretty good indicator of how we operate. And so looking back in my life, I think I had 2 options. I could have either become much more introverted, isolated by myself,
Sure.
Or the complete opposite, and that's kind of where I landed. I've never met a stranger. Everyone should be my best friend. I don't know why we wouldn't hang out and you wouldn't come over and spend the night this weekend, even though I just got to the school 2 days ago. Because awesome. The only way I knew to survive was to be charismatic, to be quick-witted, to talk, to get you to like me, to find a connection, to find a way for you to either say me too, without knowing that at 7 years old, or to find a way to make you feel like I could give you enough of myself before you would give me anything, so that you felt like I had already put some stake in the game. Now, the caveat to that is through a bunch of counseling and realizing what I was actually doing was like filling the bowl up so that you had something to eat or drink, and then keeping you at arm's bay so that when you were done eating or you decided you didn't like it, I could walk away and it didn't actually hurt me at all, because I would be the guy who'd be like, well, here's my life. And you're like, oh my God, that's so crazy. How did you survive? I'm like, I know, I'm so awesome. But now I've told you everything that you think I could possibly tell you, and you never asked me any questions. And so now I'm perfectly safe.
Oh yeah.
Because I didn't want you to leave. And I didn't want to change schools. And I didn't want you to be like a job, and I didn't want you to be like my mom, and I didn't want you to be like, so take that through, childhood, growing up. And it's not a sad story. It's just the way that it was.
Sure.
I've never met a stranger, so I think for me, people have always been really interesting to me. Connections have always been really interesting to me. That's the only way that I knew to survive, was to do that.
Yeah. And it's always been this, I mean, we as humans react to what's new and shining in front of us stuff. And when you were, the normal life is like, oh, it's that person again, it's that person again. And now it's just like, no. Right. Like that's on your radar.
Right.
And I love that you came out this way, right?
Yeah. So you do that for a long period of time. I ended up, that was kind of like my MO for survival, all childhood, early childhood, growing up. Same thing in high school. I was vice president of FFA, student body president. I was every place I could be, I was plugged into, because I could talk my way into it. I remember when I ran for student body president at high school my senior year, the opponent who had been in the Student Government Association for 4 years, all of high school, I had never been in it once, but I thought it'd be a good idea to put on your application. So I ran. I had a lot of friends. I won, but his campaign against me was got experience, which is probably the most accurate assessment he could have made of me. Is no, I did not have any. But again, that's a really good. I always use that example because I think that's a really good picture of my ability to sew your own shoes, my ability, but also how hollow that is. And so I ended up going to junior college for a couple of years, the same song, different verse, transferred to A&M. And really after my first semester at A&M, I was there on a full ride. Again, I'm not an academic. I talked my way into a scholarship. I'm good at the interview process.
That's great.
And ended up at a place after my junior year, or first semester of my junior year of college. No real friends. Hadn't talked to my dad in 2 years. Hadn't seen my mom in a year and a half. My scholarship got taken away because I didn't make grades. And I made A's and B's, but I didn't know how to make all A's. I'm not great with details, and I was probably too worried about myself, and I was to listen or read a paper somebody sent me. So I found myself in college, no money, no job, no friends, and so for me, it was this first kind of I don't know, you call it epiphany moment, or kind of this first big realization of, I think I looked long, hard at my life, and I realized that this is what life gets you when you live life staying in the middle of your own world. This is not a life that I want to live. If this is what happens when you try to outwork, outperform, out-talk, out-schmooze, and everything about who you are is validated by somebody else because of my ability to do something you think is good, I don't want to live this life.
Were you thinking about it in those terms at that time?
100%. I looked at my life and said, Rocky, you are an asshole. You treat people like shit. You don't care about anything but you. And as long as you come out okay, you don't care who you step on in the process. Now, my intent was not malicious. I was not trying to hurt you. I was trying to protect myself. Yeah. In the process, inevitably, people got hurt. So,
real quick, too, just to not skim over, why were you living with your grandparents?
So I lived with my grandparents just because I think my mom knew it would be better for me. My grandparents could take care of me. My mom was working 10, 12 hours a day.
Gotcha. Just that stability.
Yeah, and I think there's a little bit of if it was easier for her. Why not? Why not have your kids stay at somebody else's house who you know they're taken care of a little bit better than you? You have freedom to do what you want.
Sure.
I think it was just easier for her. So there comes to a point. So realized I don't want to live my life like this. I said, okay, I'm a guy to do something different. Had a great group of friends that I thought weren't my friends, that I thought I was hurting. Ended up were guys like, hey, we love you. Stop being an idiot. You don't have to perform and ask for us to like you. And I'm like, this is amazing. You do love me. And so, Yeah, I ended up the next summer going to a place out in East Texas called Sky Ranch. So it's a summer camp out there. So I was out there. I was a counselor in '04. I think what happened though is I went from the I'm the best thing in the entire world, and I kind of pendulum swung all the way over to where the phrase I used, I kind of became like the ultimate martyr. Like, I will do whatever I can to serve you now, as opposed to outperform you. What if if you don't love me for outperforming, what if I outserve, will you love me then? Right? Like if the fear of abandonment is so high that I have to perform my way, what if I serve my way to a place that you have to have me, and then you'll love me instead?
Wow. So still unhealthy.
Crazy unhealthy. Just now for good and all of your benefit and total my demise.
Yeah.
So I was at Sky Ranch, worked there in '04, graduated college in '05, ended up going back to Sky Ranch. They offered me a full-time job after I graduated college. So I was the director for junior high and senior age kids for summer camp there for about 3.5 years. Met a girl, started dating. She was in Arkansas. I was in Texas. So dated for 2.5 years. She would come to camp every summer and be on leadership. I was obviously on full-time staff. We got engaged. She came to Dallas, had her engagement photos taken, flew her back home. She called me that night. She had something to tell you. I said, yeah, what's up? And she said, well, my mom told me that if I didn't call and tell you that I was sleeping with someone else, then she wasn't going to put a deposit down on a venue. And so I said, okay. So what you're saying is, now that I know, your mom's going to put a deposit down. And she said, yes. And I said, okay, well, tell your mom I said thank you, and you'll never call me again. And so I think for me, that was kind of like moment number 2 of realizing, okay, well, I thought it wasn't over there, so I swung over here, and now I realize it's not over here either. And so I think for me, that kind of began this like new journey. So this was 2007, 2008. So, about 10 years ago, kind of began this new journey of going, okay, there has to be something in the middle. But there has to be some middle ground. It can't be all performance, and it can't be all sacrifice. There has to be something. So I ended up coming back to Dallas. I was actually a pastor at a church in North Dallas called Chase Oaks for about 3.5 years. During that time is when I met my wife. She was an architect and interior designer here in Dallas. Started dating, got engaged, got married. Got married in the middle of '09. And about 6 months into our marriage, we were like, hey, this is terrible. You have to get on the train at 6 a.m. to get downtown to go to work, and you don't get to come home until you get to come home. My office was a 2-minute walk from our apartment, and I was on a pastor's schedule, so I went in kind of when I wanted, left kind of when I wanted. So about 6 months in, we were like, this is not what we signed up for. This is not what we're looking for. So we'd been dabbling in photography together, and so we said, why don't you quit your job? You don't like it. We moved from a 1,500 square foot to a 500 square foot apartment. We sold our car, one of our cars. I bought a scooter. I drove a scooter to work. We lived on my salary and said, let's jump in and start a business. Oh, so that was in Thanksgiving 2009. 2010, we were doing photography. I was still full-time at my job. We always heard you either love or you hate weddings. And so we photographing them, that is.
Yes.
So we thought, let's try to shoot a few. Decided we'd shoot a few weddings in 2010. Middle to end of 2010, I got offered my dream job at Chase Oaks. So I wanted to be, anybody out there who's familiar with a guy named Matt Chandler. He's a pastor at a church here in Dallas called The Village. I wanted to be Matt Chandler. He and I were going to be best buds. We were going to travel together, speak at conferences together. I was going to be a famous teaching and preaching pastor. High emphasis on famous, low emphasis on teaching and preaching pastor. So kind of got to the point where I had to make a decision. And so naturally you get offered your dream job. I said no.
So you had enough self-awareness.
I had just enough to go, if you say yes to this, it is going to end up very bad for you and even worse for everybody around you. Wow. And so they said, what do you want to do? I said, well, I don't love the job I have now, and I can't take the promotion, so I think I'm going to be a photographer.
And so it was just bye?
So it was like, okay, and they said, great, if that's what you want to do, then we support you in that. I quit my job February 1st, and they gave me full benefits and full salary through August. And I quit. I mean, it's crazy. But there were a lot of things happen over the course of that year or so that was like really for my wife and I knowing like, hey, we're doing what it is we're supposed to be doing.
Those little markers.
Yeah. Okay. So we jumped into shooting weddings. We photographed weddings full time, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. So about 5.5 years, we shot weddings full time. It was awesome.
So obviously you were in the camp that you really enjoyed it and it made sense. And
I enjoy photography.
Mm-hmm.
I loved working with my wife 7 days a week, 24 hours a day.
Cool.
I love the fact that it gave us the freedom and ability to spend quality time with our family. I love the fact that we both got to spend multiple years in counseling separately to get healthy. I love the fact that it forced us to jump in a community of people who were like-minded, who challenged us to live in a way that was not just about us. I loved all the people we met. I mean, being kind of like hindsight now, I mean, we convinced 250 couples to let us in on the most intimate day of their life for 8 to 10 hours, full access to everything. then not only photograph it, but I spent many Saturday afternoons at 3:30 in the bathroom with the bride going, hey, I need you to get your shit together. I need you to stop crying. All those things that you think don't matter, don't matter. You're getting married today. That's the whole reason you showed up here. So you're going to have 4 or 5 minutes to get yourself together. You're going to come back out, and then we're going to do this thing, which is not what I was being hired to do. Wow. I was being hired to take pictures and keep my mouth shut. Except that's not actually why we were being hired, right?
Right.
And so looking back, I'm like, of course, wedding photography makes sense. Like, my wife is crazy artistic, crazy creative, crazy talented. I am semi-talented in all those, but I learned how to use a camera, and I learned how to manipulate a camera in a way that allowed me to build a relationship. Mm-hmm. So found out we were pregnant with our son early 2015. My wife was like, hey, do we really want to shoot 40 weddings a year for the rest of our life and have a kid? And we said no. And so really my wife said, if you could do anything, what would you want to do? And so I said, I like business, I like branding, I like strategy, but I don't love any of those things. I said, if I could be an expert in anything, I want to be a people expert. Awesome. I didn't really know what that meant. I just knew that I cared significantly about people. I cared significantly about helping individuals find freedom from the fear, doubt, obstacle, and insecurity that holds us back, not from being the best version of ourselves. I think that's stupid. I think those freedom, those insecurities and obstacles that hold us back from seeing that we have value outside of our ability to perform. Mm. And so from that, started working.
Because that's a much baser level.
Oh my gosh.
That's like, you can't possibly get over here until you have this.
Yeah. And it's like, I'm going to be my best self. No, you're not. Because if you're your best self today, you're peaking. Like, there's one best. There's only one best. You can't, you don't like, right. And so, like, I hate that phrase. If you haven't known it, like, I would just prefer, I just want us to be our truest self. Right? Like, I just want you to wake up today, and I want you to be you, the truest version of you, every day, unapologetically. Yeah. So then started this, and that was early 15. And
so besides those bride conversations, where has this shown up? I mean, I'm sure working at the church and all that's like, is that where this is sort of manifested? Like, I mean, that you can even point to something, so I can do this because.
I mean, I also think I look at it and go, I've taken a lot of risks in my life. I'm definitely not risk averse. I enjoy it thoroughly. Yeah. Almost definitely to a fault sometimes, I think. But I look at the relationship with my dad, that today is the most healthy it's ever been, or the closest it's ever been, and it shouldn't be that way. Yeah. I look at the relationship with my mom, and we have a good relationship, and we have really healthy boundaries, and she loves my son, and my son loves her, and it shouldn't be that way. I look at the relationship with my grandpa, who loved me and gave everything he's ever had for my own benefit, but it's been really strained because he just had a really terrible childhood and has difficulty in relationships. And I wrote him a letter a year ago, and he's responded incredibly well since then. The only letter just said, I'm really sorry for being an asshole for the last 10 years, even though you gave a lot to me. And I'm not asking you for anything. I just want you to know how I feel. And so I think looking at my marriage, that was not good, and we weren't close, and we were highly codependent on each other. And we thought that was what a healthy marriage was, but it was actually not. And seeing that change because of work and effort and energy put into understanding who you are and why that matters. Being in community for 3.5 years, leading a group of community for the last 3.5 years, counseling people, talking to people, coaching people, not under the pretense of any of those titles. Yeah. I think more, not don't hear this as selfish, more of, because I spent a large majority of my life trying to perform and it was worthless. And I spent another portion of my life trying to outserve you and it was pointless. Because there was no base value to go, I'm doing this because I believe I was made to, regardless of what you give back to me. Right. And I don't have to compare myself to anybody else, because then I'm just actually comparing my life to somebody else's purpose. And I'm frustrated that I didn't end up with their life, which is insanity. But that's what we do all day, every day. And so I think for me, I look back at my span of my life and I look at all these things that I saw and that I was taught and that I learned and mistakes that I made. And now that I don't still make some of those same mistakes, but it's what I do now it's the sum total and the full culmination of all my life experience in one moment that I want to try to do my best to provide value, because I think that you're worth my time, whether you give me something back or not.
Yeah, that's really strong. And I'm sure now on a daily basis, you feel what you never felt on either side of that pendulum before.
100%.
And what is it too? What are some of the moments that you've had since making that decision that have been, okay, that was the right decision?
Yeah. Barring sounding crazy. One, when my wife looks me in the face and she says, I know it's crazy and I know it's risky, but you're doing exactly what you were made to do and you have to keep doing it. Two, the people that are closest to me and love me and are brutally honest with me say, I don't know what it's going to take or what you need to make sure this keeps happening, but it needs to keep happening.
Oh.
And the fact that, and I don't want to say 100% because that's probably not true, but we'll go with really high percentage. But I'm not going to give a number. We'll say really high. Anytime that I have been willing to let my ego go aside and know that in the conversation, my desire is not to walk away as the hero, when my desire is not to walk for us to leave and my goal for you to be to remember my name, but my goal is to allow you to see something in you, to reflect something back, to translate something back, to give you a glimpse of something you didn't see before. They gave you a single ounce of freedom you didn't have. I will take the risk and I will wake up and do my best to find people who want to be a part of this conversation for the rest of my life.
Wow.
Because I have felt the weight of being tied down on both sides, being tied down by my performance and being tied down by my servanthood, both of which were miserable. And I think that we were actually all designed and made and created to be able to stand unapologetically in who we are and simultaneously not compare ourselves to somebody else's life. And so there's two statements I think we have to be able to make at the same time in the same breath. I'm wildly unique and extraordinary, and there's nobody in the world like me. I fundamentally believe there's no other human being like any other human being alive. Identical twins should be called similar twins. They shouldn't be called identical, right? And same breath, no punctuation. You are 100% regular, meaning you are no more or no less valuable than any other person on earth. The freedom for me is I feel like I've lived the extreme of both of those. I've lived the side that said, I remember saying, I'm not conceited, I'm just better than you. Like, it makes me want to throw up. Yeah. And I also remember living the side that said, I'm doing everything in my power to make sure to do this the right way and to serve you and care for you, and I'm being shit on. I guess I'm just not. I guess I'm just supposed to be someone else.
Wow.
To me, those two statements allow you to go somewhere to the middle and have a tension of those two statements that actually provides some ounce of freedom for us.
And I think some people can't handle the gray, but I tend to live there and be so comfortable with that. That's why that resonates so much with what you said, because it's both of those things are so true at the same time. And it's okay to live in that space. There's way more gray in this world than black or white.
Yeah. No, very, very few things are black and white. Very, very few things are black and white.
Yeah.
Very, very few things are binary.
Yeah.
Almost everything is two things that shouldn't exist at the same time, that exist at the same time. That's why it works.
Right. And I think that is a superpower when you can embrace that fact. Totally. And live there comfortably and then thrive.
Totally. I mean, if you look at the folks who are, and I hesitate to use this word, but I think it'll resonate because it's a word that's being thrown around. Like, if you look at any influencer anywhere, in any category, whether that's on social, whether that's written, whether that's word, whether that's family, any influence anywhere, the reason they have an influence is because they have the ability to say two things out of their mouth at the same time that shouldn't fit together. And when you see that they go together, you go, holy shit, I want that. Right?
I never thought about
Right? Like, you look at Gary Vee and you go,
absolutely.
How can you be so crass, so confident, so seemingly arrogant, and make content every day for folks who are never going to pay you $1?
Yeah. And
right?
serve. Yeah.
I mean, across the board, anyone who falls in a category of someone you go, I admire and I respect and has influence and I listen to regularly, it's because they are doing something out of both sides of their mouth that you believe both. You just don't think that you can do it.
Yeah. So when you go in to work, whether it's an individual or a group,
sure,
what is that process? Yeah. What is that? How do you take your world of wisdom and just start from scratch with somebody and go through this?
Yeah. So let's say we sit down with a team of 12 people. So that process is 8 hours. You come in that morning, we're together for 8 hours straight. No phone, no technology, no interruption, no human to human, 8 hours.
Awesome.
Breakfast, food, coffee, we take it. You just show up, we got you. So first 20 minutes, drinking coffee, donuts, and I'll give some little insights of how things work. So feel free. These are just free for anybody. I purposely buy food that we don't have plates for. You have to have a donut in your hand. You have to have a taco that gets greasy. You have to. It's intentionally like trying to break some of that, like perfect and neat and clean. And then I'm watching. How do you drink your coffee? Did you drink coffee? Did you eat a donut? Did you use a napkin? Did you not? Did you get crust on your face? Do you not care? Do you care? Did you look at it but not eat? Because all those things. That's how we start.
Yeah.
You be you, and I want to watch it. Okay. In a non-creepy way. I'm interacting. I'm talking, but I want to figure those things out.
You're not like right here.
Yeah.
Like,
Like one more chew, please. Great. Got it. No.
The notepad here.
So we do that. We sit down. I open up every session with exactly the story I just gave you. So the first 20 or 25 minutes is me telling you all about my life, from where I was born all the way to where I landed today, and why we're going to do this thing today. I do that because I want to create a space of vulnerability. I want to create a space where you can see me for who I am as a human before we dig into you as a human. Because without that, I don't think we're not going to get very far.
Right.
We jump into there's a booklet we go through. The first 4 questions everybody answers are, what do you think about most? So where do you spend the majority of your brain power? Now, all these are prefaced under you as a human being, not you as a professional. Even though your company paid for you to be here and your boss is in the room, everyone is answering these questions personally. So what do you think about most? Where do you spend the majority of your brain power? Answer that how you will. Number 2, what 3 things in life do you fear losing most? Again, read it how you may, answer how you will. Question number 3, if you spend the rest of your life doing only 2 things, what will those 2 things be? No rules, no restrictions. You have freedom to do whatever you want, but only 2 things. What are those 2 things? And then question number 4 says, what's one thing you hope to accomplish in your life? That's not a bucket list question. Skydiving doesn't work.
Right.
For you, what's that bigger legacy piece you hope you leave? So everybody takes some time, everybody writes down all their answers, and then we go around and everybody has to share every answer aloud for every question for the entire day. So that everybody goes around and shares. So during that time, basically what we're doing is we're breaking down your thoughts, fears, hopes, and dreams. Inside thoughts, fears, hopes, and dreams, you're telling me how you think, how your brain works, what you're afraid of, what you need, what you wish you had that you don't have, insecurities, all those things. So I use that time as a really great time to get to know you. I'm also helping you and your team get to know each other because you're answering things I guarantee you've never walked up to your buddy at work and said, hey, what 3 things in life do you fear losing most? Right. But it gives you a really good picture of how we think and how we operate and how we work. And so we go through that, break all those things down. We spend probably 2.5 hours on those 4 questions because that's where I'm able to start to break down a ton of barriers and a ton of walls so that when we get to the self-identification part later, you have a freedom you didn't have before. If we just jump straight to the exercise, you're jaded. I want to spend 2.5 hours just talking about your humanity and having moments where there's moments where I wouldn't say they're awkward. I would say they're a little bit, they're fun for me. But there's moments where you start talking and you say something and I dig and you say and I dig and you say and I dig and you say and I dig and you say, and then all of a sudden you're crying. Not because I made you cry, because we actually got to the root of what it is you were trying to say to begin with.
Because you're digging in because they've given you some answer that you know is way surface level.
Right. Or they've given me something that I know is the answer, but they didn't actually tell me why. And when I said why, they said they didn't know, and I knew that's not true. So we do that. So once we do that, we kind of take a break there. Everyone wipe their eyes, we refresh ourselves. And so then we jump into what we call just a simple core values exercise. We define core values are the why you do what you do. They're the intention, reason, motivation behind everything that you choose. Helping us know that, it helps us with communication, it helps with conflict management, it helps us with understanding how someone operates in a meeting, how we should be communicating to them. Everything you need to know about someone and how they operate, you can know from understanding their 5 core values. So it's kind of twofold. 1, I want people to start to give some of that clarity. They're doing some self-identification. And 2, I also want them to have that with their team. And then I use examples from team. Hey, so-and-so values this. If you go into a meeting, here's how you're going to push their buttons. But here's also how you can communicate effectively. If you're not knowing this before you go into the meeting, you're wasting your time. And then people are like, oh, shit, makes perfect sense. Yeah. So then we go in and we do a strengths assessment. So we use the Gallup Strengths Finder test. It's the only outside assessment we use. But we use it because I think it's the most accurate assessment of how we operate as individuals. Because strengths are how you do what you do. They're not what you do. If I say, what's a strong part of your body? You say your arms. I say, great, what do you do? You don't say, I arms. Doesn't make any sense. Right. But we like to think about our strengths that way, as opposed to going, no, with strong arms, you can do a lot of things with strong arms. Armsing, though, is not one of them. So breaking our strengths down in that way. Then lastly, we have one last exercise that we call identifiers. So they're the 30,000 foot view. They're the what you actually do. So challenger, influencer, inspirer, server, caretaker, truth teller, everything ends in ER, OR. They're all actionable type words. So you end up with a map, 5 values, 5 strengths, 3 identifiers on a big piece of paper. You know why you do what you do, how you do it, and what you do. I then, based on my opinion and knowing you for 8 hours, I draw lines between your values and your identifiers to show you how they're connected. your strengths and your identifier to show you how they're connected. And now we can read it. Now we can go, what do you do? How do you do it? And why do you do it? And we just follow the lines. What do you do? You're a challenger. How do you do that? By your strength of command and communication. And why do you do that? Because you value vulnerability and individuality.
And there's a level too, probably, of where the disconnections, right?
Right. And you go see all that and you go, oh, I always thought my strength of competition was related to the fact of my value of performance, when actually competition is a relational strength. It means you have to be with people so you know where you stand and you want to see us collectively go together. Being competitive is not about watching someone lose. Being competitive is solely about having someone engage yourself so that you can win. Well, that's not what culture says. Culture says being competitive means that you need to step on as many people as you can to win. No. It means if you don't have other people in the room with you, you don't know whether or not you're doing a good enough job, right? So helping folks kind of navigate that, and then they can read it. So we go through all that. That's kind of like the gusto at the end. I go through every person's map, even there's 15 of us, one by one in front of everybody. And it's about 3 to 3.5 minutes. I walk you through your map and tell you how everything is connected.
Oh, that's great.
And so the goal, again, is I want you to leave with the clearest picture of who you are as a human. I want you to do that with the people that you work with, you talk with, the people that you spend 8 hours a day, 5 days a week with. And I want to give you tools and resources to now go back with your team, with your people, with your family, and use some of these things to kind of put those things into practice so that we can, in a way, like have a new language to speak. I want to give you a new way to talk about what you do and how you do it and why you do it, and in a way that's not based on your job description or the reason someone hired you, but it's actually based on who you are as a human being.
Yeah, and just like you talked about too, if you had jumped down to that stuff before, you're going to do it through the filter of your daily, your job, your this, what you've been told. And,
exactly.
Oh, that's
and so what
powerful.
does your skill of design have to do with who you are as a human? Well, if you go in that order, nothing. Well, what does who you are as a human have to do with your ability to design? Everything.
Yeah.
So just trying to I'm turning it on its head makes it sound like, well, I mean, I guess I do kind of think we have it backwards, or I wouldn't be saying I want to devote my life to it. So we do it backwards. But yeah, it's kind of turning it. I want us to go, no, like you and me sitting here, riding a car, doing nothing. We have the exact same amount of value as a human being as we do when we're at our desk performing at a really high level. Our value as a person is the same.
Yep.
Now, my value to the company might be different, but is my value to the company how I'm going to rate my value as a human? Well, culture says yes.
Sure.
I say no. So again, it's but we have to relearn how to give a language to who we are so that I can sit confidently here knowing I'm not answering emails and I don't have an invoice being paid. And at the same time, know that, you know who doesn't care about how much money I make? My son.
Yep.
You know who,
3? Is he 3 now?
He's 2.5.
Yeah.
You know who doesn't care about my emails? You know who doesn't care about whether or not someone applauded me at a keynote? You know who doesn't care? He wants his dad to come home and he wants to ride scooters. He wants to he wants you to look him in the face and tell him that you love him and you're proud of him.
Oh yeah.
Right? He wants to know that it's a safe environment. He wants to know that it's a place that he can trust, that at 2:30 a.m. I have a choice. This is kind of the way I try to look at almost everything. 2:30 a.m. I went to sleep at 10 o'clock. I'm tired. I have a big event the next day. I'm trying to be rested. And I hear little footsteps coming down the hallway and I hear whimpering. So I have a choice in that moment. I can get up and be really frustrated and I can be short-tempered and I can pick him up and put him back in his room and he's crying. I can close the door and he's screaming more and I can be more frustrated and tell him to stop crying, and he's 2.5 and 2:30 a.m. is totally irrational. And so we're going to fight for an hour and he's going to finally fall back asleep and I'm going to be frustrated and I'm going to be miserable the next day. Or the moment I hear footsteps coming down the hallway, I can say, how incredible is it that we have the ability and the effort to build a family, and that I can be a dad, that my son at 2:30 a.m., that I'm the person he wants to come to.
You get to be the superhero.
And I get to be the person that he says, I love you and I trust you and I'm scared, and the only person I want to come put me back in my bed is my dad.
That's everything.
So why can I not see that value in every other arena and go, someone has paid for me the opportunity to spend a day with their team. They have chosen that me as a human, they value to be in the room with them. So am I going to have to go in there and strong arm it and prove why I am who I am? Or can I trust that I'm there because I'm supposed to be there? And there's something I can bring to the table. And at the end of the day, I'm not trying to be the hero. At the end of the day, I'm trying to provide some kind of clarity so that you walk away feeling significantly more free than you did before, and you never have to say my name again.
love that. You can't go wrong with that as your roadmap. You know, you just can't. And I think, and again, you're in the middle. You're balanced because you've made a business and a life out of it. It's not, oh, just let me come in and serve everyone at my detriment.
Right.
It's let's all win.
Yeah. Yeah. You know, man, I tell you, there's times, man, I wish I just sold like a widget or a cord, or I wish I sold a attachment for your cat. You know, like.
And then you came home and you got to leave it.
Yeah. Sometimes I really wish I just like sold women's shoes at Macy's. You know, like I think I could make a killing selling women's shoes. But somebody else out there is selling women's shoes and they're killing it. And they're killing it because they provided a place where people can come and they feel safe and they feel cared for. And there's right, like someone out there is just slaying the women's shoe department.
Right.
That's just not me. And so I gotta trust that I'm doing the thing that I'm supposed to be doing. Safety and comfort are not synonymous. Right. And so like, is what I do, like, am I trying to always provide a safe environment? For sure. Do I want to be safe? Yes. And do I want it to be, but safe doesn't mean comfortable. Safe doesn't mean secure. Safe doesn't mean that it's not going to be hard or that's not going to be risky or not, it's going to be like, those things are not, it's not it. So like, is my life always comfortable? No, actually, a lot of times it is the complete opposite of that. But if I can provide a space or do my best, whether it's with my wife, my son, my friends, my family, at work, with a client, if we can create an environment that feels safe, then we have the freedom to feel comfort, uncomfort, joy, both pain.
And know that it's okay.
And know that all of those things are okay to live together.
Yeah. Yeah, that's powerful. I love this. Rocky, I could go on.
Well, obviously, you know that I could. So
talking for I absolutely love this. What's the best way for people to follow, reach out, learn more about you?
Yeah. So do our best to put out content 5 days a week. Instagram, LinkedIn, Facebook. Probably most active on Instagram and LinkedIn. So those are the two places I'd say to interact the most.
Good deal.
We're about to roll out like deeper content from the things we put out every week via email and text. So the website is just rockygarza.com. So you can head to the bottom. You can sign up for the thing there. And then every platform is just Rocky Garza. Thankfully, there's not a whole lot of us out there. So Instagram is just Rocky Garza. Facebook is /Rocky Garza. LinkedIn is /IN/Rocky Garza.
Nice.
Website's Rocky Garza. Rocky at Rocky Garza is the email. Just
perfect.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Find me.
Find this guy. Reach out. Dig in more.
Thanks
so much for being on.
I appreciate it. Thank you so much.
I love having that time to drive around and talk to Rocky about not only what he does for clients and just for people that he encounters in life, right? And some of those end up being his clients. Some of those are people that, like you mentioned, met at Startup Week last week and kind of helped them on their path. I highly encourage you to reach out, connect with Rocky at Rocky Garza everywhere, as you heard him mention. Also, once again, thank you to Raj Daniels and his book For You From Me for sponsoring this episode. Appreciate it so much. Make sure you head over to Amazon, grab this copy. You will be so grateful that you did. And if you like interviews like this, make sure you subscribe here on YouTube. And if you're listening to the podcast, subscribe there as well on your favorite listening platform. Helps us get found by more folks. And we'll see you next time.
It's Saturday night. It was Saturday night and I'm feeling kinda silly. Winter coat on cause the air was chilly, but I'ma make my way out to the record spot. Gotta find some new breaks for the beats to rock. I gotta come with the flavor like some lifesavers. On now and laters, Dr. Beatmaker. If I'm a player, it's like a tape deck. And if you miss the gig, then take a rain check. Stacks of wax piled high to the ceiling. Need a U-Haul truck if I would think about stealing, but it's not my steed, so I commence with the digging, no kidding. Something that'll keep the beats hitting what I'm getting. So much to choose from, bro.